hitting the Sunday show circuit to press for the release of the classified contents before they are able to review it could reveal sources and harm investigations. But several Republican lawmakers have called for the release, saying it will show that Robert Mueller's investigation into the president is politically motivated.
This memo is nothing but the distilling, the reducing of thousands of pages of documents provided to us by the department and the Bureau. So there's nothing in this memo that the department is not already aware of. This memo answers what I think are really legitimate questions.
Having read this memo, I think it would be appropriate that the public has full view of it.
And you don't believe this is somehow the president tampering with the investigation? How does this not look like that if he does?
Because it has nothing to do with the president right now.
And in fact, President Trump also wants the memo released.
We don't know what's in the memo. It's classified. I haven't seen it. But I think the president generally sides on the side of transparency. And so, yes, I think he believes that that should be put out.
But Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican, said he'd prefer an outside counsel review the memo rather than declassify its contents. Heather, the big question, like I said at the top, will today be the day? We're waiting.
A lot of people waiting for that. And everyone at home, let us know what you think. Should it be released or not? Thank you very much, Todd. Appreciate it. Well, Judicial Watch is now revealing that the FBI is refusing to turn over additional text messages related to 2 anti-Trump employees. But according to the Watchdog Group, the messages don't belong to either Peter Strzok or Lisa Page, you see right there. Instead, they belong to the FBI's number 2 man, Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who was believed to be mentioned in one of the released texts.
If Sessions were serious about this, and I think he ought to be very serious about it, is he'd recognize that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We knew there were text messages to be had. We sued back in September for the text messages of the number 2 at the FBI, Andrew McCabe. And they just told us this week, they gave us everything they were going to give us, and not one text message was turned over. Have they lost all of Andrew McCabe's text messages? I don't believe it.
Well, Fitton goes on to say that what is going on in the Department of Justice may be obstruction of justice. And some updates to some stories that we're following for you. This Fox News alert: 4 people shot dead in what could be a jealous rage. 28-year-old Timothy Smith accused of killing 2 women and 2 men in a rampage at a Pennsylvania car wash. Police say that he used a semi-automatic rifle and he was wearing a body armor carrier. Police not releasing a motive, but the shooter is said to be obsessed with one victim whom he dated. Smith suffered a gunshot wound, possibly self-inflicted, and he is not expected to survive. And not the news we wanted to hear. A hero shot in the line of duty has died. 25-year-old Detroit police officer Glenn Doss Jr. succumbing to his head wounds 4 days after he was hit with a bullet while responding to a domestic violence call. Fellow officers, including his own father, calling the 2-year veteran one of the best.
He is truly what we call one of Detroit's finest. He is what we call an American hero. He loved the job, and he died doing something that he loved, and I can live with that.
Doss leaves behind a girlfriend and a 9-month-old son. There's a GoFundMe page for his family, and it's raised more than $30,000. The alleged shooter, DeCarlos Brooks, will likely face murder charges. And speaking of murder, violent crime is so bad in Mexico that federal troops are being used to help stop it. After reaching the highest homicide rate in decades, an unknown number of troops are being sent by the government to at least 4 states, including the popular tourist destination, Cancun. Well, officials reporting that more than 29,000 murders happened in 2017. The U.S. already issuing the highest level travel warning for areas in Mexico. And you can see why. Some terrifying moments. Look at this. Overnight, as a small plane makes an emergency landing on a busy California highway, even flying under an overpass. So the pilot and the passenger, who were heading from San Diego to Los Angeles, forced to find a gap in traffic when the plane had some engine trouble, and they could not make it to the nearest airport. Emergency crews calling it a complete miracle that no one was injured. That's amazing, and a really good pilot. Well, President Trump is gearing up for his first State of the Union address tomorrow night, and where he's expected to tout our country's economic progress, I should say, while pledging to work with Democrats. Some on the left, they're still refusing to even show up. Griff Jenkins joins us now live from Washington, D.C. with the very latest. So a big night
That's right. Good morning, Heather. Big week here in Washington. The president spent the weekend actually here at the White House working on this first State of the Union address. The theme will be building a safe, strong, and proud America. In the headline, according to White House officials, will be the economy. We got a little preview of it from the White House Legislative Director, Mark Short.
I think the president's going to talk about how America's back. He's going to talk about where we are today as far as growing an economy. He's going to talk about the fact that America is open for business. And the president's also going to make an appeal to Democrats, to make an appeal to say we need to rebuild our country, and to make an appeal that to do infrastructure, we need to do it in a bipartisan way.
In addition to jobs, the economy, and infrastructure, the president will also address immigration, trade, and national security. We're told the president's aiming for a unifying speech that will speak beyond his base, and that will be important when it comes to that topic of immigration, with the White House releasing their immigration plan today, which offers a path to citizenship for 1.8 million dreamers, some of whom will be in the audience Tuesday night. But at least 7 Democrats have announced they are boycotting. You see them there. Maxine Waters is actually going to give her own State of the Union address on BET, and another one of them, Congressman Meeks, explaining why he's skipping.
I cannot give this man who does not respect me the respect to be in that audience. Okay. I will not be there. At every opportunity, he has disrespected me and individuals who look like me. I cannot respect him.
And one Supreme Court Justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, will be absent as well, but that's due apparently to a previously scheduled event. It will be interesting to watch, Heather. I think everyone in the country wondering, will there be a moment where he really surprises us? Get your popcorn. We'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe he will. Griff, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, well, he knows firsthand what it's like to face fierce partisan opposition, having governed during the Clinton administration. And Gingrich says that tomorrow's address will come from a president who promised to and is succeeding in draining the swamp.
Well, I think the different parts of the swamp are getting drained at a different rate. He is clearly the greatest deregulation president in history. The number of pages of regulation that they have ripped up exceed everything Reagan did in 8 solid years. It's an amazing achievement for his first year, and I think it's had a big effect on the economy. He clearly has begun to move on judges. You'd have to say that he has had more appeals court judges approved, 12 in 1 year, than any president in his first year in the history of the appeals court, going back to 1891. So you have to give him very high marks there. The tax cut moves power out of Washington in a huge way. So I would say I'd probably give him a 65 or 70% achievement rate in a very, very tough business. Remember, the city is trying to stop him every morning, and he continues to plow forward.
And President Trump's approval rating, it continues to rise as well. The latest Fox News poll, take a look, it has 45% of voters approving of the president's job performance. That is a huge bump up, 7 points since October. So we'll see if that continues to rise after his State of the Union address. Well, the time now is about 10 minutes after the top of the hour. And turning a blind eye, how one state is helping protect illegal immigrants by hiding them from ICE. And we're about to find out whether the Obama administration worked the system to target President Trump's campaign when the bombshell FISA memo is released. Our next guest was at the center of the IRS targeting scandal and says that no one should be surprised by what we're about to find. And welcome back to Fox and Friends First. Washington State issuing a new emergency rule to help protect illegal immigrants, protect them. Drivers will no longer have to provide their birthplace when applying for a license. Now, this move coming just weeks after the Seattle Times reported that the Department of Licensing was handing over personal information to ICE that could be used to arrest and deport illegal immigrants. But now ICE has a new tool that they say they can use to help track down illegal immigration. Now, they've gained access to a nationwide licensing plate recognition database containing billions of records. Now, this will allow agents to track people via their car movements over the past 5 years. Now, the data is collected from cameras on police cars, bridges, and toll booths. So we'll see how that works out. Well, the White House is now calling for the release of the controversial FISA memo as Republicans call for another special counsel to investigate the claims of corruption inside.
that once the memo is released, I think that there is going to be calls for a special counsel, 2 sessions, from all these committee chairmen who are involved in it. And I think it's going to be hard for Sessions not to do that.
Well, joining me now is Tea Party Patriot CEO Jenny Beth Martin. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather.
So tell people at home your firsthand experience in terms of something like this.
Yeah, when I've heard the members of Congress say that they're shocked by what's happened and when they've read this FISA memo and its KGB-like tactics, I thought this is exactly the way that I felt when the IRS was targeting groups with Tea Party and Patriots in their name and asking for the contents of people's prayers, books that they've read, who they've spoken to, who spoke at events. The list goes on and on and on. That's the kind of thing we came to expect from the Obama administration, whether it was from the Fast and Furious scandal, the IRS targeting that happened to groups like mine, the congressional exemption from Obamacare, or granting DACA status to people who entered this country illegally. That administration was lawless, and they had a flagrant disregard for the rule of law.
And not transparent. And that's one of the issues and one of the reasons that the Trump administration is saying that this memo should be released because of, being transparent.
Right, exactly. When the targeting was happening to us, nobody believed that it was happening until finally Lois Lerner admitted it. And then we began to get some of the facts about what was happening. We needed to see this memo. We paid for it. We deserve to see it so we can judge for ourselves exactly what happened. That requires transparency, and then we need to hold the people accountable if what we think is in this memo actually comes to be accurate and true.
Now, the House Intel Committee put this together, but Democrats are saying they want to release their own memo if, in fact, this is released. What do you think about the Democrats doing that?
Hey, go ahead and release your own memo, and then we still, again, the American taxpayers need to see what has happened, exactly what are the facts in this case. It appears from what we're hearing that what we're going to see from this memo is that the Clinton campaign paid for opposition research, which then paid for a former British intelligence officer, Christopher Steele, who then paid Russian operatives to give him information, and they used that information to get a FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. It was politically motivated then. We need to see if that is actually what happened, and if it is, we need to get to the bottom of it and need to hold those accountable who committed these offenses.
What about the FBI's demand that they be allowed to see the memo so they can make sure that there's nothing that interferes with national security?
Well, of course, we don't want to do anything that would interfere with national security, but I can't imagine that the members of Congress would want to do anything that would put our nation's security at risk either. I think it is completely ironic that the FBI, who delayed and delayed and delayed, installed, giving Congress what they'd asked for repeatedly, now wants to see exactly what's in this memo and what it's about. It sounds like they just don't want the truth to come out. They don't want light shine on their organization, and we need to see what happened and how corrupt the FBI actually was during the Obama administration.
Either corrupt or not, release the memo and let us make up our own mind based on what it has to say. Jenny Beth Martin, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We will have you back when we find out what happens with the memo.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Thanks. Well, now to this Fox News alert. New violence overnight after a weekend wave of terror in Afghanistan. The message that the Taliban is now sending directly to President Trump as our military pounds the region.
We remember that this country was built by dreamers.
He had a long-time fear of being poisoned.
Did you see this last night? The biggest stars in music using the Grammy stage to pull political punches. Carly Shimkus here with the most outrageous moments of the night. Good morning. Can we go back to the fire and fury part of the entire thing?
Yes.
I recall during the Obama administration, there were several books written about President Obama that were deemed false and not true and a bunch of rumors. Can you imagine if they did that to him?
Well, you know, of course, that would never happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, one of the biggest moments of the Grammys and one of the biggest books, most popular books of the year right now. If they wanted to create some sort of shock value during the Grammy Awards, they certainly did, especially with Hillary Clinton. Nobody expected her to be a part of the show.
Why not have people talking about the performances the next day versus political stunts like that? It's just crazy. Yeah. It's infuriating, actually. Thank you very much, Carly.
Thanks so much.
We want to know what you think. What did you think of the politically charged Grammys this year? Emails at friendsfirst@foxnews.com or tell us on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll try to read some of those later in the show. Well, the time now is about 26 minutes after the top of the hour. The video is terrifying. A little girl dragged into a car. Watch this as it happens, abducted in broad daylight, but she escaped. But now the new question for investigators, are there more victims?
I could not give this man who does not respect me the respect to be in that audience. Okay. I will not be there.
Well, Democrats are trying to score some political points by skipping the President's State of the Union address, but the real audience is the American people. So what message does he need to send? We'll debate it up next.
Now, all countries should take decisive action against the Taliban and the terrorist infrastructure that supports them. This latest attack, by the way, Heather, shows an escalation of attacks on the capital of Afghanistan, and the Afghan people are now wondering if their security forces can protect them.
And we certainly should not forget about our troops in Afghanistan and all over the world. Thank you so much for joining us, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, the Trump administration is pushing Iran to permanently release an Iranian-American prisoner. 81-year-old Bakir Namazi is on temporary release from Iranian prison after being discharged from a hospital for some serious heart problems. Namazi is a retired UN official held prisoner since 2016 for what Iran calls cooperating with the country's enemies. His son has been held prisoner since 2015. They're serving 10-year sentences. Benjamin Netanyahu praising President Trump for his decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The Israeli Prime Minister telling CNN's Fareed Zakaria that it will open the door for peace in the region.
President Trump made history by recognizing history. He did a great service for peace because peace can only be based on truth, on reality. And denying the simple fact that Israel's capital is Jerusalem pushes peace backward by creating an illusion, fantasy. Can't build peace on fantasy.
Well, the embassy is expected to be moved by the end of 2019. The president expected to use his first State of the Union address to declare that America is back, and he'll use the power of the pulpit to lay out his agenda for 2018. So what message does he need to send? Joining me now to debate is Republican strategist Chris Prudhomme and liberal analyst Kathy Aru. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we begin, let's take a look at the pillars of the State of the Union as we expect them. Jobs in the economy, infrastructure, immigration, trade, and national security. The president expected to hit on all 5 of those pillars. So, Chris, I'll start with you. What do you think is the most important thing for him to get across to Americans?
So I'll say kind of 1A, 1B, working together, unity, national security, I think would be the 2 things. It is important to bring America together as a nation, of course, and national security at the same time. We certainly are in a very politically divided nation, and it's time that everyone it kind of gets on the same track and is focused on moving the agenda forward and not focused on personal political issues. It's time to bring America together. And of course, national security, which is immensely important. No matter what people's beliefs are on any side of the aisle, it is important to have a nation with strong borders and obviously strong security, especially in today's society across the world.
Yeah, I think a message bringing people together also will be imperative. Kathy, what do you think?
Right. Most presidents use the State of the Union address to launch new programs, but I think he's going to use it to build confidence, probably act presidential, and he needs to reset his agenda. So we're probably going to hear a lot about Dreamers and DACA, immigration, and he is probably going to brag about three things: the economy, the economy, the economy.
Well, and that's a valid point, the economy, because it's doing great. The U.S. stock market, massive gains heading in today's opening bell. The Dow was up 223 points on Friday. You can take a look at the numbers as the bell opens today. So that's a legitimate point, right, Chris, to talk about the economy and how it's impacted everyone, all facets of society.
Absolutely, it is a very valid point, and the truth of the matter is the economy is doing very well. I believe today, Southwest Airlines just announced that their profits even more enhanced because of the tax reform. This has affected everyone, no matter who you are, big or small. And starting February, you'll be able to see it on your checks directly reflecting. This is something that he certainly can talk about. This is something that has encouraged numerous organizations and companies across America to put more money in the hands of people. That's what this is about, and he's done a phenomenal job. It was a great concept, and it was executed very, very well.
And regardless of what people like Nancy Pelosi have to say, Kathy, you know, $1,000 in somebody's pocket does make a difference. I want to get you to respond to this, though. Maxine Waters, amongst some others, skipping the State of the Union, but plans to respond to President Trump on BET. What do you think about that?
Right. That's so interesting she's going to do this, and she's one of his most fiery, feisty opponents, so it's going to be fascinating to see what she says. And his approval is at an all-time low, so Maxine Waters has a lot of momentum going into this. She has a lot of people probably that are going to agree with her, so I think many people are going to tune into BET and see this unconventional response to a State of the Union address.
Actually, in terms of poll numbers, we had a Fox News poll that we talked about just this morning, the latest poll that showed that his numbers are up 7% since October, a full 45%, the highest number so far. I think that he's doing a great job. Chris, you get the final word here.
Thank you. Look, this is the exact type of rhetoric that people are tired of. The fact that she is only doing this to appeal to her base, to obviously benefit the DNC, this is ridiculous. I mean, she should be at the State of the Union. If we want to talk about bringing America together, she should be there supporting, obviously, America First agenda, not going on BET. She should be there at the State of the Union discussing how we bring America together. This is how you divide America. This is time to bring America together and not bring it apart. All these members of Congress who are protesting and opposing, they're only doing it for their base and for their own agenda. This is not about a personal agenda. This is about the bringing America together. And that's what President Trump is doing.
I've said this before. You know, you have opposing sides, you have opposing viewpoints, but you listen to each other. And perhaps these folks should lead by example and at least sit there and listen. Chris and Kathy, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, schools across the country shutting down as the deadly flu outbreak reaches epidemic proportions. Dr. Nicole Sapphire breaks down the early warning signs that everyone needs to know.
We don't need that type of rhetoric on either side, from Nancy, Paul Ryan, or anybody else.
And Democratic Senator Joe Manchin tells Nancy Pelosi to grow up and get on board with President Trump's wall, the friendly fire from the left. It's scary. I had a friend who died from the flu at the beginning of the month, or a couple weeks ago, in Ohio. So this is affecting people who are healthy, and it comes on very, very fast.
Yeah, so this is absolutely one of the worst flu seasons on record. However, it's of the tragedies that can come from the flu. You can't just write off the flu being just the flu. And as you said, it comes on really fast. What we are seeing with this flu in particular, it's a different strain. It's H3N2. People are having the flu or flu-like symptoms for a few days. Some people actually have mistaken them for just a bad cold.
Right.
And then they get better, they go back to work, and then all of a sudden they're really sick, and that's when you're seeing people die. And that's because what's called a super infection, which means your immune system is down because it's been fighting off the flu. All of a sudden, a bacterial infection takes over, and a lot of times it gets into the lungs.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what happened to my friend because she was trying to treat herself. She didn't know it was that bad from over-the-counter, medicine, and a speech that hasn't even happened yet. Were you surprised?
I sadly was not surprised, given what we've seen on college campuses across the board, and so many conservatives have been accusing the left of just shutting down President Trump simply because he's conservative, simply because he's Donald Trump, before actually listening to what he has to say. And for people that pride themselves on being so open-minded and so tolerant, it was disappointing but not surprising to see that they've made up their mind based on rhetoric, based on preconceived ideas about Donald Trump and about the Republican Party, but not actually on facts.
And speaking of rhetoric, you could actually hear from just some of that sound. People seem to be just repeating the rhetoric that they hear other people say.
And you mentioned other people. Oftentimes those other people are professors, specifically on college campuses. We've covered across the board how in college classrooms, there's only one ideology taught, and that's a liberal one. And students are now being raised to believe that they're only allowed to be a liberal. And anyone on the right has to be racist, they have to be bigoted, they have to be not caring about poor people, all of those things. And so it does add up to where college students have a negative connotation, a negative perception of conservatism, to where they hate it blindly without actually knowing what its politicians and what its principles are about.
Yeah, and this is the time of life when you're supposed to be getting both sides of issues so you can form your own opinion. And I was thinking of that last night when we were watching the Grammy Awards as well. So they're getting it from professors, also getting it from Hollywood.
There is an overwhelming pressure, not just from the classroom, but a social pressure where students feel that if they do anything that is remotely, positive towards conservatism, that they're going to be shut out and ostracized. And sadly, it's taking away from what college is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a marketplace of ideas where if anywhere in society you should be able to have a disagreement and have opposing views. It's college, but that's not what's happened anymore. And it's dangerous moving forward. We can laugh at this, but millennials, people my age, 18 to 29-year-olds, now the largest voting bloc in America. And for years to come, we're going to be heading to the polls, people in that age group with a warped perception of what actual, policies are about for the Republican Party and the Democrat Party as well.
Yeah, last night the Grammys reading from Fire and Fury as if it was fact when it's already been disproven by people who are quoted in the book itself that say, I didn't say that. So people definitely getting a distorted view of what's true and what's not.
And Hillary Clinton making an appearance, showing up, reading that book and getting a huge cheer from the crowd. I think it shows how out of touch people in the elites are, this liberal elite part of Hollywood and society. And I think many conservatives are saying, good, Hillary, stay around as long as possible because you lost and you're just bringing that losing mentality to the Democrat Party. Stick around as long as you want because it's a losing message that you have and people don't trust you.
All right, well, the State of the Union is tomorrow night, and we'll have you back on hopefully after that to see what people really have to say about the real speech and what happened.
Looking forward to it.
Cabot, thank you so much for joining us. Top of the hour. And fighting the war on drugs with more drugs, how liberal lawmakers are planning to use pot to battle the opioid epidemic. And the serial stowaway at it again. We've told you about. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. The FBI releasing some terrifying video. We told you about this suspect snatching this young girl right off the street in broad daylight. A surveillance video capturing the scene in a neighborhood near Chicago. The child was walking home from school last month when the man grabbed her and put her into his red Ford Explorer. The police say that he then assaulted her. Well, she got away, and the suspect was later arrested. He faces life in prison, and the FBI is hoping other victims, if there are other victims, that they will come forward. The serial stowaway is at it again. You'll recognize her right there. Police arresting Marilyn Hartman in a privately owned plane area at O'Hare International Airport after she refused to leave. The 66-year-old was just arrested 2 weeks ago for sneaking onto a flight to London without a ticket, a judge ordering her to stay away from all Chicago airports. Hartman arrested multiple times. Take a look over the years. Pelosi over DACA. This after she claimed President Trump's immigration plan wants to, quote, make America white again.
We don't need that type of rhetoric on either side, from Nancy, Paul Ryan, or anybody else. And I come down this. The president has laid out a template. We're going to look at that template, and we're going to work with it. We have the wall. We need to repair the wall. We'll need to build more wall. We need to do whatever we can to secure the borders.
Well, Congress is expected to get back to work today to hammer out a deal on DACA before the government runs out of money again on February 8th. So we'll see if they can make that happen. And the controversial memo detailing alleged surveillance abuses in the FBI to spy on the Trump campaign could be released today. Many Republicans and the White House are pushing for it to become public. So we asked you on Facebook what you thought, and an overwhelming 99% of you agreed. Hashtag release the memo. So we'll see if that.
What are you trying to say? We're going to get a decent playlist together.
Somebody just buzzed my ear saying we're working on our anchors, too. It might be the person that chose that song.
I think that was
good.
Aaron.
That was very nice. I think that was Aaron. That sounds like her tone. I'm Rob Schmidt. Happy Monday.
And I'm Jillian Mealy. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. Let's get right to our top story. Alleged corruption and surveillance abuses at the FBI could be revealed as early as today in that controversial FISA memo.
This comes as the White House and many Republicans are pushing to make this public, and Democrats don't like that idea at all. Todd Pyro joins us now live with the latest developments on that. Hey, Todd.
Hey, guys. Good morning to you. Could it be time to face the music? See what I did there? Could the answers? There we go. Could the answers to some of our most burning questions be known by this time tomorrow? Republicans in Congress hitting the Sunday show circuit to press for the release of the classified FISA memo they claim will reveal bias within the FBI. Now, the memo reportedly outlines allegations that the FBI used the controversial Steele dossier to obtain a surveillance warrant against then-Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. DOJ officials warn that releasing its contents before they are able to review it could reveal sources and harm investigations. But several Republican lawmakers have called for the release, saying it will show that Robert Mueller's investigation into the president is politically motivated.
This memo is nothing but the distilling, the reducing of thousands of pages of documents provided to us by the Department and the Bureau. So there's nothing in this memo that the Department is not already aware of. This memo answers what I think are really legitimate questions.
Having read this memo, I think it would be appropriate that the public has full view of it.
And you don't believe this is somehow the president tampering with the investigation? How does this not look like that if he does?
Because it has nothing to do with the president right now.
And in fact, President Trump also wants the memo released.
And we don't know what's in the memo. It's classified. I haven't seen it. But I think the president generally sides on the side of transparency. And so, yes, I think he believes that that should be put out.
But Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said he'd prefer an outside counsel review the memo rather than declassify its contents. But, guys, we've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. Today could be the day.
Wow. Certainly see what happens. Thanks, Todd. Amid calls to release that FISA memo, Tea Party Patriots CEO Jenny Beth Martin says no one should be surprised by any proof of corruption that could be inside.
You might remember she was at the center of the IRS targeting scandal that took place during the Obama administration, and she joined us earlier to share her thoughts.
When the targeting was happening to us, nobody believed that it was happening until finally Lois Lerner admitted it. And then we began to get some of the facts about what was happening. We needed to see this memo. We paid for it. We deserve to see it so we can judge for ourselves exactly what happened. That requires transparency. And then we need to hold the people accountable if what we think is in this memo actually comes to be accurate and true. I think it is completely ironic that the FBI, who delayed and delayed and delayed, installed, giving Congress what they'd asked for repeatedly, now wants to see exactly what's in this memo and what it's about. It sounds like they just don't want the truth to come out. They don't want light shine on their organization.
All right, President Trump gearing up for his first State of the Union address tomorrow night, where he is expected to tout our nation's economic progress while also pledging to work with Democrats.
But some on the left still refusing to even show up. Griff Jenkins joins us live from Washington, D.C. with the very latest. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Jillian and Rob. Yeah, the president spent the weekend at the White House working on this address. The theme will be building a safe, strong, and proud America. And the headline, America is back and the economy is booming. We got a little preview yesterday from the White House Director of Strategic Communications, Mercedes Slatt.
The president is going to speak from his heart. He's going to bring an optimistic message to all Americans. This is about patriotism. This is about a safe, strong, and proud America. And we just look forward to Tuesday for the president to talk about his top priorities, including jobs, infrastructure, trade, immigration, and national security.
All right, so there you have it. Jobs in the economy, infrastructure, immigration, trade, and national security. We're told the president is shooting for a unifying tone that will speak beyond his base, which will be very important when it comes to that immigration topic, with the White House releasing their immigration plan today, which offers a path to citizenship for 1.8 million dreamers, some of whom will be in the audience Tuesday night. But at least 7 Democrats have announced they are boycotting. The list includes civil rights icon John Lewis. Maxine Waters is actually going to give her own own State of the Union address on another channel, and Congressman Meeks explains why he's skipping.
I cannot give this man who does not respect me the respect to be in that audience. Okay. I will not be there. At every opportunity, he has disrespected me and individuals who look like me. I cannot respect him.
We've also learned one Supreme Court Justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, will be absent as well, but that's apparently because of a previously scheduled event. Rob, Jillian.
All right, Griff, thanks so much. Now to a Fox News alert, 4 people shot dead in what could have been a jealous raid.
Raid in decades. An unknown number of troops are being sent by the government to at least 4 states. That includes the popular tourist destination of Cancun. Officials reporting more than 29,000 murders in 2017. The U.S. already issuing the highest level threat warning for areas in Mexico. 2 men who had enough fentanyl to kill the entire population of New York City and New Jersey combined are heading to state prison. Jesus Carrillo Pineda sentenced to 10 years and Daniel Vasquez receiving a 6-year sentence. They were among 4 men charged after nearly 100 pounds. That is 18 million doses of fentanyl was seized by New Jersey State Police last June. The charges dropped against one of the other suspects and the other still a fugitive.
Well, terrifying moments overnight as a small plane makes an emergency landing on a busy California highway, even flying right under an overpass. The pilot and a passenger who were heading from San Diego to Los Angeles, a very quick flight, forced to find a gap in traffic when the plane had engine trouble and they could not make it to the nearest airport. Emergency crews calling it a complete miracle that somehow nobody was hurt. That is amazing.
Hey, guess what? Super Bowl week is officially here, and the Philadelphia Eagles have landed in Minneapolis as they prepare to do battle with the New England Patriots. The NFC champions arriving 1 week ahead of the game, the Patriots flying to Minnesota today.
And Philly, of course, hoping to claim... Why am I reading this? Shouldn't you be reading this whole thing?
Philly, of course, hoping to claim their first Super Bowl title. The last time they were in the Super Bowl was back in 2005, and by the way, it was against the Patriots. The big game next Sunday in Minneapolis. Kickoff is set for 6:30 p.m.
Hey, Jillian, who do you think's going to win the game?
Excited. The Eagles. Underdogs, baby. Let's go.
Underdogs.
Come on.
All right. 9 minutes after the hour.
Protecting immigrants from deportation, how one state is making it harder to track down illegals.
And Ronald Reagan in 1982 delivering one of the most memorable State of the Union addresses in history.
We saw the heroism of one of our young government employees, Lenny Skudnick.
As President Trump gets ready to make his first State of the Union, Lee Carter breaks down the best and worst addresses in history. That's coming up. Would provide a path to citizenship for nearly 2 million dreamers, even going farther than President Obama was prepared to go. It would also provide $25 billion in border security, including the wall, and limit chain migration to just spouses and young children, also eliminating the visa lottery. But DACA recipients still not happy and are criticizing the restriction on family-based migration, which would not cover their parents. ICE has a new tool that they can use to help crack down on illegal immigration. They've gained access to a nationwide license plate recognition database that contains billions of records. This will allow agents to track people via their car movements over the past 5 years. The data is collected from cameras that you see all over the place. You see them on police cars, on bridges, on toll booths, other places like that. Jillian.
The stakes are high as President Trump looks to address the nation tomorrow night in his first ever State of the Union address. So what can we learn from past presidents? Joining me now to break down the best and the worst moments from the past State of the Unions from his Landscape Partners, Lee Carter. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Happy to be here.
So before we get into some of the best and worst, what do you want to hear from President Trump? What do you think he could say that would perhaps sway some of those people still on the fence onto his side?
You know what I think is really interesting about the State of the Union address is it doesn't typically change public opinion. What it does do is put pressure on Congress to make moves. What he does, though, he will remind the American people of what he's achieved so far, and he will lay out his legislative agenda. So the hope is, and President Trump does really well in these scripted speeches, so the hope is he's going to allay any fears that people have had about him most recently.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the best moments that you've picked out, and let's start with Ronald Reagan in 1982. Go ahead, take a listen.
We saw the heroism of one of our young government employees, Lenny Skutnik, who, when he saw a woman lose her grip on the helicopter line, dug into the water and dragged her to safety.
Why is this one of your favorites?
So this is really interesting. It was really hard to pick one of Reagan's favorites. This was 1982. This was the first time that he had a citizen in the audience to underscore a point. And ever since, presidents have been copying it. They've been inviting people into the audience and really using the American people to illustrate the points of the benefits. And this was the first time it was ever done.
Something works, it works, right?
That's right.
All right, let's go ahead to 1996 and I hear from Bill Clinton.
We know big government does not have all the answers. We know there's not a program for every problem. The era of big government is over.
What did he say that really resonates?
So what was fascinating about this is right after the midterm elections where Clinton lost a lot of seats. So what he did here is he signaled a move to the center. This book did two things. One, it really shifted his agenda, and two, it changed the course of politics for quite some time. A move to the center was quite different than what we had seen, and he did it very well, and then he ended up winning again.
So George W. Bush's address post 9/11 in 2002. Let's take a listen to that.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world. The price of indifference would be catastrophic.
Powerful.
Really, really powerful. This was a rallying cry for the American people after September 11th, and that term, axis of evil, stuck with us for quite some time, and we're still dealing with it today.
All right, so now let's go ahead and shift to some of the worst moments from previous State of the Addresses. Richard Nixon, major mispronunciation in 1974.
In these final 3 years of my administration, I urge the Congress to join me in mounting a major new effort to replace the discredited present welfare system. The discredited present welfare system with one that works.
Well, we all have those moments, don't we?
We all have those moments, but this one was a little bit different in that it was real foreshadowing of what was to come. You wonder what was on his mind right after he said it.
All right, so Barack Obama criticizing a ruling here in 2010. Let's listen to this. Tell us why you think this is one of the worst.
With all due deference to separation of powers, last week the Supreme Court reversed a century of law that I believe will open the floodgates for special interests.
Because it wasn't just that he went after the Supreme Court, which is something that's rare in the State of the Union. Usually they do get partisan sometimes. This was really unusual because he's going after the Supreme Court. But I don't know if you noticed there, but Justice Scalia mouthed back and said, no way.
Well, it's never a good reaction when you have something like that happen.
No, it's not. And certainly the Supreme Court is usually mum is the word and no expression during the State of the Union.
Well, Lee, thank you for joining us. Thank you for pointing all of these out, and we'll certainly see what happens tomorrow night in the State of the Union.
Can't wait.
It's something to make the highlight reel. All right, guys, thanks so much. 18 minutes after the hour, incredible video as a brand new Jeep bursts into flames. What happened moments before to help the soldier inside escape just in time?
We remember that this country was built by dreamers. One reason why he liked to eat at McDonald's. Nobody knew he was coming, and the food was safely pre-made.
That's it. We've got it. That's the one.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
The Grammy's in the bag?
In the bag.
Well, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley reacted on Twitter, writing, "I have always loved the Grammys, but to have artists read the Fire and Fury book killed it. Don't ruin great music with trash. Some of us love music without the politics thrown in it." But despite all the political grandstanding, awards were still handed out, and the big winner this year was Bruno Mars, the singer sweeping the top 3 awards, winning Album of the Year, Record of the Year, and Song of the Year. Now, speaking of the awards, a bit of controversy there as well. Very few female performers won a Grammy last night, leading to the trending hashtag Grammys So Male.
Yes. And they still applaud Hillary, the far left, even though, I mean, she handed them President Trump. I mean, she's the reason that he's here, and they still go nuts for it. It just cracks me up to see. And they still let her do stuff like this. All right, thank you so much, Carly.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And we asked what you think about all of this. Our viewers sounding off on the politically charged award show. Wally on Facebook writes, tired of celebs giving themselves awards. They make too much money, and instead of doing good, they use their platform to criticize and tear down our way of life.
James tweeting, Trump must be doing the right things if the liberals in Hollywood are upset. Hashtag Trump effect. Zoe on Facebook says these people are so out of touch. I'm so proud to call Trump my president.
And Jean emailed us writing, quote, Hollywood should get the same treatment the NFL is getting, overpaid, self-centered egomaniacs who, without the general public, would be nothing.
That's a good one.
Keep your comments coming.
Yeah, we like to read them. Wakes us up. 25 minutes after the hour, new violence overnight after a weekend wave of terror in Afghanistan. The message the Taliban is now sending directly to President Trump as our military pounds that region.
Think about the people who you know over there. You're pretty stupid on Louis or whatever. They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low.
So that's a high school teacher and city councilman slamming our military in the classroom. A Marine Corps veteran says this is standard operating procedure for the left, and he's here live ahead to react.
I have type 2 diabetes. I'm trying to manage my A1C.
Base in Afghanistan killing several soldiers.
This just the latest in a wave of terrorist attacks across the country. Kelly Wright joins us live from Washington, D.C. with the message the Taliban is sending. Good morning, Kelly.
Jillian and Rob, good morning to you as well. Look, these volatile attacks continue to escalate with ISIS and the Taliban vowing to carry out more. Today's attack, a military base. At least 11 soldiers were killed, 17 wounded after a suicide bomber launched the attack. Insurgents then engaged in a gun battle with Afghan soldiers, and 5 insurgents were killed. ISIS has taken responsibility for the attack. The terrorist strike follows a bombing on Saturday where a Taliban member used an ambulance as a weapon to kill at least 103 people in Kabul. A Taliban spokesman claims the attacks are meant to send a clear message to President Trump, stating this: the Islamic Emirate has a clear message for Trump and his hand kissers. If you go ahead with a policy of aggression and speak from the barrel of a gun, do not expect Afghans to grow flowers in response. Well, in response to the Taliban's deadly attacks, President Trump issued a strong response, stating this: this murderous attack renews our resolve and that of our Afghan partners. The Taliban's cruelty will not prevail. The United States is committed to a secure Afghanistan that is free from terrorists who would target Americans, our allies, and anyone who does not share their wicked ideology. Now all countries, the president goes on to say, should take decisive action against the Taliban and the terrorist infrastructure that supports them. This latest attack, by the way, shows an escalation of the attacks on the capital of Afghanistan. They're ramping things up, and the Afghan people are worried, wondering if their security forces can protect them. Jillian, Rob.
All right, Kelly, thank you very much. The mother of a teen brutally murdered by alleged MS-13 gang members will attend President Trump's State of the Union address tomorrow. The White House personally inviting Evelyn Rodriguez to the address, even asking her to speak to President Trump beforehand. Her 16-year-old daughter, Kayla Cuevas, was found beaten and stabbed to death in Long Island in 2016. It is the same area where MS-13 gang members are accused of at least 25 killings. One of Russian President Vladimir Putin's biggest critics thrown behind bars. Alexei Navalny violently arrested in Moscow while on his way to protest the election scheduled for March. Navalny was banned from running against Putin due to an embezzlement conviction. Many are calling political pushback. He was later released but will likely face charges for calling unauthorized demonstrations. The FBI releasing terrifying video of a young girl snatched off the street. This happened in broad daylight, and you can see right here, this is home surveillance video capturing the scene in a neighborhood near Chicago. The child was walking home from school last month when the man grabbed her and put her into his red Ford Explorer. Police say he then assaulted her. She got away, and the suspect was later arrested. He faces life in prison. The FBI hoping other victims will come forward. A U.S. soldier barely escaping from his brand new SUV just moments before it burst into flames. Staff Sergeant Joe Lewis of Washington State says the 2018 Jeep Cherokee's controls malfunctioned when he got out to call for help. Look at those flames that completely engulfed the vehicle in just a matter of minutes. He and his wife say they're thankful their two small children were not in the car. It's unclear at this point exactly what sparked that fire. Rob?
All right, a high school teacher who is also a city councilman in California is caught on tape slamming our nation's heroes right in front of his students.
Think about it, people who you know, your freaking stupid Uncle Louie or whatever, they're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low, not morally. You know, I'm not saying they make bad moral decisions. Just, they're not talented people.
This is what the kids are hearing in this high school in California. Here now to react to this is Marine Corps veteran and New York State Assemblyman Kieran Lawler. Kieran, thanks so much for coming on this morning, sir, and thank you for your service. Listening to something like this, I think it irritates a lot of people. I can only imagine what you think.
Yeah, it really does. Well, my first reaction was if you didn't know that was a high school teacher, an elected official, you would think it was some kid riding on the middle school bus talking like that. You know, it takes an intellectual heavyweight to pepper your sentences with words like freaking and some of the other language that he used, which is ironic because he's talking about the lack of intellect and the lack of talent in our military.
And he's saying guys like you and the millions of people that have fought and died for this country and the soldiers that protect us every day are not talented enough to do anything else.
Yeah, it's incredible. First of all, I was a high school teacher before I joined the Marine Corps, which is a big irony with this story. But the other thing is, that's an old 60s Vietnam-era mentality that only dead-enders go in the military. It wasn't true then. It's certainly less true now. If you think about what the military does, you have drone operators, you have cyber security, even the ground-pounding grunts, which is where my heart is with my fellow grunts. That is an exercise in leadership and management that you would have to be a CEO of a big company or get an advanced degree to even come close to. Leading young men and young women in strenuous situations, caring for their health, making sure they're fed, making sure you execute the operation. So it is an incredibly talented group. It's the cream of America's crop. You know, a couple of nights ago I was at a not-for-profit with some ROTC cadets from Marist College, our local college, and you wouldn't find more upstanding young men and women who are excited about joining the military. And I said, hey, why are you joining the Army? I was curious. And they said, I love my country. I want to serve it. So that kind of purity of heart, that kind of dedication is what makes up our military. To see that mocked is really, really offensive.
Yeah, I think most people that have any kind of intelligence about this know it takes intelligence, it takes discipline, it takes a lot of things that most people don't have to make it into the military and to make it through. I mean, we do not have low standards for that. Let's go ahead and let's see a soundbite, or not a soundbite, I'm sorry, a Facebook post from this teacher. This is a response to this. I don't think it's wise for me to make any specific comments, but I want my friends, family, and students to know we are fine and we respect the rights of free expression for all individuals. So now he's trying to hide behind this whole, you know, I can say anything because it's a free country and stuff like that. But I mean, obviously, he did not want this to get out. For somebody who claims that military members aren't too bright, he's not smart enough to say something like this in front of a bunch of kids that have cell phones and get recorded.
Right.
The level of disrespect has got to be the most frustrating.
It's huge. It's incredible. It actually reveals his ignorance. And you mentioned he's kind of hiding behind the freedom. And it's ironic because it's the very freedom that the young men and women he's mocking protect. In one of the clips, he says, why do we cheer at a football game when there's a flyover of military jets? Why are we cheering that? And that's interesting to me because down in Cherry Point, North Carolina, outside the air station, the big sign says, pardon our noise, it's the sound of freedom. And that's the thing that this teacher doesn't get. So he's mocking others for not being as smart as him while he's revealing that he's basically a moron.
He is, basically. I completely agree with that, and thank you for your service and to the many, many men and women that have served and all the great things that the military does in this country. Think about what the world would be like without the U.S. military. Think about what Europe would have been like after World War II without the U.S. military and so many other places. Sir, thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go now and check some weather, lighten things up a little bit at 37 minutes after the hour. Adam, it's kind of warm today in New York. I'm loving that.
Yeah, warm here on the East Coast. There are spots where some of that cold air is funneling on into the country. Look at the middle of the country, running into the northern plain states, 20 degrees in Kansas City, 8 degrees in Minneapolis, 17 degrees just a little further off to the west. Now, the warmest air out there continues to be right in the southeastern United States. That is fueling heavy rain showers that will continue for the next several hours. Otherwise, taking a look back across the country, mostly clear conditions. One other area we're paying very close attention to is up in the Pacific Northwest. That's going to continue to be an issue. It has been for the last several days. It will be again today. So here's your future radar, and you're going to see bands and rounds of very heavy rainfall moving through places like Washington into Oregon, running up into the mountains. That is going to turn into some snowfall. So that's a spot you'll want to be careful here in the next couple of days. Otherwise, though, here's your temperatures for today. Highs will be 43 degrees here in New York City. Again, it's the Great Lakes. It's running up into the northern plains where this coldest air remains here for our Monday. Guys?
All right. Thank you, Adam.
All right. 38 minutes after the hour, schools across the country shutting down as this deadly flu epidemic reaches some serious proportions. The early warning signs that everybody needs to know.
You know, the bugs come and you spray something, and then they come, and then you create a super bug. And then now we have Donald Trump, the super bug.
Rapper Jay-Z slamming President Trump even before the Grammy Awards. As you know, liberal attacks, nothing new. But will anyone call them out? Our next guest, ready to do just that.
And one man faces the wrath of the golf world, blowing a major moment.
You don't do that.
For Tiger Woods and his big PGA comeback. And this drives him crazy, too. What he did that caused a greenside revolt.
We remember that this country was built by dreamers, for dreamers.
Here now to react, host of the Michael Knowles Show, Michael Knowles. Thanks for joining us this morning, Michael. You heard in that clip there the crowd just go crazy when Hillary Clinton came up on the screen reading that excerpt of the book Fire and Fury. What's your reaction to that and the whole night?
Well, nothing says entertainment quite like Hillary Clinton, right? Isn't that just what the American people want? I don't know when the Hollywood elite and when the music elite will get the point that we do not want to hear their political opinions. The ratings in the key 18 to 49 demographic on the Grammys have been at several-year lows. Oscars were at 9-year lows last time around. The Golden Globes had low ratings. People are tuning this out. There was one high point last night when Patti LuPone sang, and it was maybe the saddest reminder of what glamour and class used to look like at these awards shows that have now turned into hysterical, unentertaining political rants that the American people, very rightly, are just tuning out.
It's fascinating, though, because, I mean, when you look at the average, Hollywood musician or Hollywood actor, these are not really the most
perfume on a trash can. And what you do when you do that is, the bugs come and you spray something, and then they come, and then you create a super bug. And then now we have Donald Trump, the super bug.
And then President Trump responded to that on Twitter, of course, saying, quote, "Somebody please inform Jay-Z that because of my policies, black unemployment has just been reported to be at the lowest rate ever recorded." Michael, your thoughts?
Well, I do share a last name with Jay-Z's wife, so we're practically family. And President Trump here, this is his superpower. President Trump is the first Republican in my lifetime who can fight cultural battles and win it. One thing that not a lot of people are talking about is even Donald Trump's tweet is in the form of a rap. Somebody please tell Jay-Z that my policies have black on it, and so on and so forth. And so he's willing to engage it in a fairly trollish way. And you heard Jay-Z say, because black unemployment is at historic lows, because the economy is doing so well, he can't complain about anything in public policy. So he has to say, billionaire Jay-Z has to say, oh, money doesn't really matter that much. And then he goes on television, lip quivering. This is a man who pled guilty to stabbing someone at a nightclub, but he says Donald Trump may have used a naughty word, and it's so disingenuous. He's right about one thing, that money isn't everything, economic policies aren't everything, culture matters too. Politics is downstream of culture. Fortunately, with President Trump, we get the best of both worlds. Good, sound economic policy and a cultural warrior who is willing to wage these important battles.
Okay, so they've got this big plan to do this People's State of the Union. They want to boycott the President's State of the Union tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. What do you think?
Mark Ruffalo, the voice of the American people. I encourage them to do it. Please bring it on. It's being organized by Mark Ruffalo, who is a 9/11 conspiracy theorist who's called on NBC to stop hiring white conservatives. Bring it on. Some people complain that Donald Trump is not likable. He has low approval ratings. I think President Trump could back over the collective dog of the American people. He would still be more likable than these out-of-touch Hollywood elites.
All right, Michael Knowles, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Certainly see how the celebrity State of the Union, or whatever they're calling it, plays out today.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Have a good one.
I'll be watching.
Yes, we will be watching. So will Steve Ducey. We'll be watching all of the above. All the news that's happening every day. Isn't that right, Steve?
That's right. And we'll all be watching the State of the Union address tomorrow night, live right here on the Fox News channel from Washington, D.C. What will the president say? Well, we're going to get great analysis this morning. We've invited 3 hours of terrific guests. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich is going to join us. Also, Senator Dave Perdue of the great state of Georgia, Sean Spicer. And there's all this stuff hanging about Robert Mueller, and that's why we're called in Ken Starr. We've got a busy 3 hours. Kicks off about 11 minutes from right now, right here on the channel you trust for your morning.